Hi, this is Miss Hale, and these are our death notes for our unit on death. The definition of death is the cessation or end of life. It is the irreversible cessation of blood circulation that would be caused by the heart stopped beating, and or the cessation of all brain activity. So you can be brain dead and still have your heart be beating. The experts don't really agree on the true definition of death, but those are the two definitions. We're going to discuss manner, cause, and mechanism of death first. It can be natural, which is the most common. That would result from a kidney failure or heart disease or cancer. It can be accidental, which would be a car accident or maybe falling down the stairs, something of that nature. Suicidal would be taking one's own life, and homicidal would be someone else taking someone's life. It can also be undetermined. Sometimes it's too difficult to figure out, and so then that would be put in the undetermined category. The cause of death is the reason for the death. Maybe it was due to a heart attack or could be due to a gunshot wound, whereas the mechanism of death is the specific change in the body that brought about the cessation of life. It could be blunt force trauma to the head, or the heart stopped beating, a specific organ that's failed to act properly. So now we're going to talk about the different ways to tell time of death. The first one is livor mortis. Livor mortis is the leaden color of death, and you'll see a picture of it right here. So that bluish purpley color that you might see on a dead body. Lividity happens with decomposition, and what happens is the blood will seep down and settle into the lowest parts of the body. So it's really dependent on which way the body is positioned. And those red blood cells turn the skin the bluish purple color. Livor mortis begins about 2 hours after death and becomes permanent after 8 hours. So the ambient temperature around the body, or the environmental temperature, affects the speed of livor mortis. And you can use livor mortis to determine the original position of the body. Therefore, if the person was laying on their back, the livor mortis would set in. And then if you came in later and moved the body, you'd be able to tell because of that livor mortis. The next way to tell is rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is the rigidity of death, meaning that the skeletal muscles have stiffened. And this happens because there's not oxygen in the blood. The calcium builds up in the muscles and the muscles stiffen up. It starts in the head because those are our smallest muscles. So it starts in the smallest muscle groups and then goes to the largest muscle groups, like those found in your thighs. After about 2 hours, it's the most rigid, and then muscles start to dissolve and softening begins at around 15 hours. Rigor mortis has many factors that affect it. One of those is the ambient temperature, just like with livor mortis. Also, the weight of the body can affect it. The more overweight a person is, the longer rigor mortis takes to set in. And vice versa. The skinnier a person is, the more quickly it sets in. Type of clothing or lack of clothing. The general health at the time of death. The level of physical activity. So if you were doing physical activity on a certain part, it might set in into that part of the body first. And the buildup of lactic acid is what causes the rigor mortis to happen more quickly. And it also is affected by sun exposure. Algor mortis, which we worked with today, is called the chill of death. Body heat falls after death. Immediately after, it falls about 1.5 degrees per hour, and then starting at 12 hours after, it starts to fall about 1 degree per hour. And that's all affected by the ambient temperature. So for those numbers, it would be at room temperature. But if you were in a snowbank or somewhere cold, your body would lose heat more quickly. Whereas if you were in somewhere hot, like a hot car, your body heat would not drop as quickly. Algor mortis is tested by a thermometer in the liver, and it gives a range of time for how long that body has been dead for. Stomach and intestinal contents actually don't give time of death, but they do give is how long it's been since the person's last meal. So how long after the person's last meal did they die? If it's 0 to 2 hours after the meal, undigested food will be present in the stomach. If it's 4 to 6 hours after the meal, the food, okay, sorry about that. 4 to 6 hours after the meal, food is in the small intestine, not in the stomach. And then 12 or more hours after the meal, the small intestine is empty and the waste is in the large intestine. An interesting story that I've heard about this is when I heard a forensic pathologist speak. And he was doing an autopsy on a body, so he was also worked as a medical examiner, and he found that the meal was in the stomach was hamburger and peas, because you can actually tell what the food was. And was talking to this girl's family, she didn't have hamburger and peas. So what they did is they looked for a restaurant between the two where they knew the girl was, and they found one that had hamburger and peas on the menu. And at that restaurant, they found someone who had just been released from prison, and he was actually the person that murdered the girl. So just based on stomach contents, they had a lot of clues as to who murdered this young girl. And then finally, you can also look at insects. And insects are a really good way to tell how long a body's been dead for. If you look at this chart, it says how long it takes to go from eggs to larva to pupa to a full-grown adult fly. And these are for a blowfly at 70 degrees. Within minutes of death, certain insects arrive to lay eggs on the body, and they get in through the orifices like the nose, mouth, ears. And those are usually blowflies, so blowflies will be found on corpses throughout the U.S. As the corpse decomposes, other insects arrive. The life cycle of the insects provides a benchmark for how long the body's been dead for. It's not exact due to the environment, but it is a close estimate. So those are our notes on death. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon. Maggie wanted to say bye too.